Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling a text that it really acts as a bit of a Rorschach test.
Mhm.
Depending on who you are, it's either the most comforting story in the world, Christmas pageants, manger scenes, silent night,
Right.
or it's a story you've heard so many times that the words have just completely lost their edge. The shepherds, wise men, baby, star. It feels like the ultimate been there, done that narrative.
And that familiarity is actually the biggest obstacle to understanding it. We get
Yeah.
so used to the pageant version that we just gloss over details that are, quite frankly, weird.
Yeah.
If you were reading this for the first time with no tradition behind it, you'd stop on page 1 and say, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. And that is where we are going today. We're looking at a specific, let's call it a glitch in the matrix of the Gospel of Matthew, right in chapter 1.
Oh, yeah.
It's a contradiction about baby's name that stares you right in the face, but nobody talks about it.
It's a classic case of reading what we expect to see rather than what's actually on the page. And to help us unpack this, we're looking at a deep dive analysis from the Qilun Yan channel.
Okay?
And the focus here isn't just, retelling the Christmas story. It's more like a literary autopsy of Matthew chapter 1.
Literary autopsy. I like that. So here's our mission. We're going to figure out why the text quotes a prophecy about a baby named Immanuel, but then immediately turns around and commands the parents to name him Jesus.
And what that mix-up reveals.
Right, and what that reveals about the entire architecture of the Bible.
It's a name game that actually unlocks the structure of the whole book.
Yeah.
It changes the genre from just a biography to something much more political, much more structural.
Okay, let's go to the scene of the crime. Matthew chapter 1. The angel appears to Joseph.
Right.
The setup is pretty standard for miraculous birth. The angel says, don't panic, take Mary as your wife. This baby is from the Holy Spirit. Standard stuff so far.
Yeah, but then the narrator breaks the fourth wall. The action just pauses. And Matthew inserts a comment. The text says, all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Immanuel.
Which the text helpfully translates for us as God with us.
Correct. That's the prophecy. They shall call his name Immanuel. But watch what happens right after that. The angel gives Joseph his specific marching orders.
Right.
Does the angel say, so go ahead and name him Immanuel?
No. The instruction is explicit. You shall call his name Jesus, or Yeshua in the Hebrew.
And let's just be clear for everyone listening. Jesus and Immanuel, they're not like variations of the same name. They're totally different words with totally different meanings.
Okay, so what are they?
Yeshua means Yahweh saves.
Yeah.
Immanuel means God with us.
So if I'm reading this like a contract lawyer,
Yep.
The prophecy says name him A, but the reality is name him B.
Yeah.
Did the prophecy fail? I mean, did they get the wrong baby?
Well, if you take it as a literal prediction of a name tag, yes, it failed. Jesus was never called Immanuel by his friends or his mom or his disciples.
Right.
Pilate wrote Jesus on the cross, not Immanuel. But the source argues that if we get hung up on the literal name, we miss the entire point. Immanuel isn't a label for the baby. It's a description of a new reality.
So it's more like a title or maybe a status update.
It's the thesis statement for the entire book. The source points out that Matthew isn't just checking a prophecy-fulfilled box. He's setting up a literary bookend for his whole gospel.
A bookend. Okay, explain that.
Think about how the book starts and how it ends. Chapter 1. The prophecy says, God with us. Now, jump all the way to chapter 28, the very last verse of the entire book. What does Jesus say?
I am with you always, to the end of the age.
Exactly. God with us at the start. I'm with you at the end.
Okay.
The source argues that the theme of the book isn't just the biography of a man named Jesus, it is the manifestation of the presence of God. The name Immanuel wasn't a label. It was the structural promise of the whole text.
Okay, that makes sense structurally. It's like the opening shot of a movie matching the closing shot.
Right.
But the source material goes way deeper than just New Testament structure.
Yeah.
It drags us all the way back to where this prophecy actually came from, Isaiah chapter 7.
Yes. And this is so crucial because we usually treat that virgin birth verse like it just floated down from heaven, completely detached from history.
Yeah.
But in reality, it was spoken in a war zone.
This part really blew my mind. I always just assumed Isaiah was talking about some distant future Messiah. But the source says he was talking to a specific king about a specific crisis happening right then and there.
King Ahaz, this is around 730 BC, and the situation was desperate. Ahaz was the king of Judah sitting in Jerusalem, and he was getting squeezed.
Okay.
Two other kings, Pekah from Israel and Rezin from Syria, had teamed up, and they were marching on Jerusalem to wipe Ahaz out,
Mm.
to end his whole dynasty.
So he's got armies at the gate, full-on panic mode, and the source uses this great analogy of a strategy game, like Civilization or Risk.
Yeah. Or Romance of the Three Kingdoms. When you're a small nation losing a war, what are your options?
Well, many.
You really only have two moves. Option A, you hunker down, fix your walls, and trust your own defense. Option B, you call for help. You find the biggest, baddest empire on the map, and you hire them to come save you.
You call in the mercenaries.
Exactly. And Ahaz wanted to call Assyria. Assyria was the absolute superpower of the day. They were the big stick.
But calling for help is never free, right? Not in those games, not in history.
It's not free. You pay with money. Ahaz actually stripped the gold from the temple to pay them, but you also pay with culture. You become a vassal state.
You'd have to adopt their gods.
You have to submit to their religious practices. It's basically selling your soul to save your skin.
So Ahaz is on the wall, looking at these armies. His hand is hovering over the big red Call Assyria button.
Right.
And the prophet Isaiah runs in and says, don't do it.
Isaiah tells him to trust God instead. He says, ask for a sign. But Ahaz refuses, pretending to be humble, saying, oh, I won't test God. But really, it's because he's already made up his mind. He's going to trust the Assyrian tanks, not a prayer meeting.
So God gives him a sign anyway.
He does. And that sign is the Immanuel prophecy.
But in this context, the baby isn't Jesus, is it?
No, not at all. In the immediate historical context, the young woman, the Hebrew word is Alma, was likely someone right there in the room. Maybe the prophet's wife, maybe someone in the royal court. The sign wasn't about the baby's divinity. It was about the timeline.
That timeline, what do you mean?
Isaiah says, before this baby is old enough to reject the bad and choose the good, basically,
Right.
Before he's a toddler, those two kings you're so terrified of will be gone.
The source mentioned the mirror test for babies here, right? That around 18 months, a kid starts to have self-awareness.
Exactly. So the prophet is basically saying, Ahaz, look at this pregnant woman. You don't need to sell your soul to Assyria. Just
Yeah.
wait 18 months. God is with us right now. This threat is going to vanish.
But here's the twist, and I love a good twist. We think God, with us Immanuel, is this warm, fuzzy, comforting idea.
A promise of safety.
Yeah. But the source argues that for King Ahaz, Immanuel became a threat.
It became a terrifying threat because Ahaz didn't listen. He called Assyria anyway.
Oh, man.
He rejected the soft flowing waters of God's protection for the mighty flooding river of the Assyrian army.
Yeah.
So Isaiah warns him, Immanuel, God is with us, meaning God is watching you betray him. And because you called this river, it's going to flood.
I remember the imagery from the source. It says the river will come up to the neck.
Exactly. The help he called for became the oppressor. And that is the double-edged sword of the name Immanuel. It means God is present. If you are faithful, that's salvation. If you are rebellious, that's judgment. It means there is no hiding.
Wow. So Matthew takes this ancient double-edged prophecy, which was originally about a specific war, a specific toddler, and applies it to Jesus. He's saying, okay, God is stepping in again. The presence is back.
Correct. But this time, it's the ultimate fulfillment. The God with us isn't just watching a king make a bad treaty. He is here to settle all the accounts.
Which brings us to another structural mind bender the source pointed out. And this one is about the physical layout of the Bible. I had never even thought about this.
Yeah.
Why is Matthew the first book of the New Testament?
Most people just assume it's because it was written first.
But it wasn't.
No. Mark was likely the first gospel written, and Paul's letters, Galatians, Thessalonians, they were written decades before any of the gospels. So chronologically, Matthew shouldn't be first.
So why is it in the pole position?
To understand that, you have to look at the scroll arrangement of the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh.
Okay.
See, the Christian Old Testament ends with the book of Malachi, and Malachi is a prophet looking forward, predicting a messenger. It flows nicely into the Gospels. It's a to-be-continued ending.
But the Jewish Bible is ordered differently.
Very differently. The Tanakh has the Torah, the law, the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, the writings.
Yeah.
The very last book in that Jewish ordering is Chronicles, specifically 2 Chronicles.
Okay. So how does Chronicles end?
Well, it ends with the destruction of Jerusalem, the exile to Babylon. It's a disaster. But then right at the very end, King Cyrus of Persia conquers Babylon and issues a decree. He says the exiles can return.
Okay.
But listen to the specific wording. The source highlights this parallel, and it is just stunning. 2 Chronicles 36 ends with Cyrus saying, "The Lord God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth. Who is there among you of all his people? The Lord his God be with him, and let him go up."
The Lord his God be with him.
It ends with a hope.
Oh, wish.
May God be with him. The people are going back to a ruined city, and the scripture ends on a prayer that God might, be there.
And then if you're reading the scrolls in order, you turn the page to Matthew chapter 1, and what's the first big claim? Immanuel.
God is with us.
Wow.
Exactly. And now look at how Matthew ends in chapter 28 compared to how Chronicles ends.
God gave me kingdoms of the earth.
All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me.
Okay, I see it.
Cyrus says, go up to Jerusalem.
Go therefore to all nations.
God be with him. A hope.
I am with you always. A fact.
Well, it's almost word for word, but upgraded.
It's a direct response, a literary handshake. The source argues Matthew is placed first in the canon specifically because it is the sequel to Chronicles. The story paused at Chronicles with a question. Will God be with us? Matthew opens with the answer, Immanuel, he is here.
That is some serious literary architecture that turns the Bible from, like, a collection of books into a single cohesive story.
It does. It shows that Matthew wasn't just writing a biography, he was writing a conclusion to a 1,000-year-old story of exile.
But, and there's always a but, if God is with us and if Jesus is Yahweh saves, what exactly is he saving us from?
The standard Sunday school answer is sin.
Right. Lying, cheating, stealing, the naughty list.
And that's true, but the source argues it's just incomplete. If we look at the context of saving his people, especially with the heavy history we just talked about, Ahaz, Assyria, exile, sin, isn't just individual naughtiness, it's systemic.
The source used a really specific example here that I found super helpful. The debt collector.
Yes, this really paints the picture. Imagine a debt collector working for a loan shark. Now, personally, this guy, let's call him Bob, he might be a sweetheart, loves his kids, volunteers, prays for forgiveness every night. He doesn't want to hurt anyone.
But his job requires him to be ruthless. The source mentioned tactics like hanging pig heads on doors or splashing red paint on walls.
Right, to intimidate people. And even if Bob repents personally, even if he feels terrible about it, he still has to go to work the next day. If he doesn't collect, he gets fired. Or maybe the loan shark breaks his legs.
So he's trapped.
He's trapped in a structure of sin. He is participating in evil, not because he wants to, but because the system demands it for his survival.
And the source quoted Confucius here, didn't it?
It did. When a country is well governed, poverty and a mean condition are things to be ashamed of. When a country is ill governed, riches and honor are things to be ashamed of.
That's a powerful quote. It shifts the shame from the individual to the society.
It suggests the problem isn't just that people are greedy, it's that we built systems where greed is the only way to survive. The problem is inequality. It's the political traps that force good people into doing bad things.
So when the angel says Jesus will save his people from their sins, it's not just about making me feel less guilty for yelling at my spouse. It's about dismantling the sin structures,
Yes.
the political and social traps that force us into these compromises.
It's the difference between saying, I forgive you for being a debt collector, and saying, I am creating a new world where debt collectors don't even need to exist.
That is a much, much bigger definition of salvation.
It is, and it connects right back to the God with us theme.
Yeah.
If God is with us, he isn't just sitting in our hearts. He is present in the marketplace, in the government, in the war room, and he is judging those structures.
It goes back to that double-edged sword. If God is with us, he sees the system. He sees the river rising to the neck.
And he's here to establish a different kingdom. One where authority isn't based on military power like Assyria or Rome, but on a totally different kind of presence. Go and make disciples, not go and conquer lands.
It really changes how you read the nativity story. It's not just a cute baby in the hay.
Oh.
It's a geopolitical intervention.
It's the arrival of a new king who claims total authority that is inherently political and inherently structural. It's a revolution of reality.
So let's just recap the journey we've been on. We started with a confusing name swap, Immanuel versus Jesus.
Which turned out to be a thematic bracket for the whole book, God's presence from chapter 1 all the way to 28.
Then we went back to the origin story in Isaiah, where King Ahaz faced a choice. Trust God or trust the empire.
And we learned that God with us can be a threat if we choose the empire. It means God is watching the betrayal.
We saw how Matthew acts as the direct sequel to Chronicles, answering the cliffhanger of the Old Testament with a literary handshake.
And finally, we broadened our view of sin. It's not just personal flaws, it's the structural traps we live in, which God, with us, intends to fix.
It's a lot to take in from one chapter of the Bible. It kind of ruins the simple Silent Night vibe, but in a good way.
It makes it heavier, but more real. These texts are incredibly dense. They're like hyperlinked documents connecting history, poetry, politics.
The source left us with a pretty provocative thought at the end. We often sing, O come, Immanuel." It's this cozy lullaby. But if God with us means God is watching you 168 hours a week.
Right. That's the lingering question. If God is sitting next to you in your cubicle or in the boardroom or while you're making those, necessary evil decisions, does that bring you comfort or does it make you sweat?
It implies a demand for allegiance. You can't just visit God on Sundays if he is with us always.
It reminds me of the strategy game analogy again. If you're playing the game and the game designer suddenly sits down next to you and watches your every move, you play differently.
You definitely do. You stop using the cheat codes, for one. You stop sacrificing your pawns so carelessly.
Exactly. Immanuel isn't just a promise of support, it's a statement of accountability. It means the ultimate authority is in the room.
A comforting, terrifying, life-changing thought to end on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.